This is going to be my video review of the Inov8 X-Talon 212 running shoe. In my opinion, this is the best trail running shoe on the market at the moment. There are two things I love about this shoe and one thing that I don't love about this shoe. So first I'm going to start with the two things that I absolutely love. The first is the bottom. This is a sticky rubber compound, very, very soft. The lugs on it are huge, very tall, you know, almost the width of the front of my finger. They are very, very soft and grippy. And on wet rocks and wet roots, I have excellent, excellent traction. Another thing I really like about this is it has square lugs, which I think make a lot of sense. A lot of people make shoes with triangular lugs, but when you have a square lug, if you need traction going forward, there's a flat surface to push against. If you need traction side to side, you know, you don't want to slip out side to side, there's a square surface. The second thing I love about it is the midsole is almost flat, not quite flat, but good enough. It is a little firmer than I would like, but it gives me enough protection from rocks and roots that I'm not getting the bone bruises that I was getting when I was trying to run in minimalist shoes. So this shoe, and it's got a great feel. It has a very narrow heel. It's kind of the opposite of what I would think. I would think you would want a perfectly flat, wide heel for the most stability. But I'm thinking that it's actually the opposite, because these are the shoes that I roll my ankles in the least of any shoe I have. And it's narrow, very narrow. This is pretty narrow. And it rockers, so the center is kind of higher than the edges. And I think when you step on a stick, you know, it doesn't tend to roll your foot over. And since it's narrow, you step on fewer things than you would with a wider shoe. And there's less leverage. The further out you get, if you step on something, it has more leverage to roll your ankle. So I think the heel of this is awesome. These are only rated at 2 on their little scale for cushioning, but they seem much, much softer than that. I don't know if the whole shoe gives. I think the whole shoe gives as your foot lands and stuff. These lugs are very soft, and I think they give into the midsole somewhat. So the shoe feels softer than a two-star shoe. Two arrow shoe would feel, I believe. But the thing that I hate about these is they're very, very narrow up front. Just across the forefoot. The toes are okay, but around here, they're just too tight. And I have tried not lacing the first two things, and that helps slightly. I also bought a shoe stretcher. This thing, and I've been trying to stretch them, but without much success. So as hard as I have tried to stretch these shoes, and I put the little bunion things at the top to try to get more height out of the shoe, you know, it has probably stretched a little bit, but it's still too tight. The next thing I might do is slice these a little bit with a knife and see if that helps, but just right across here is just too tight. I wrote to Inov8 and said, hey, do you have a shoe that's wider? And they told me to go to this is the Roclite 290 or 205 or 2 something or other. Actually, I've been running in this shoe somewhat, and it's similar. The lugs, the material is still a grippy rubber. The lugs are closer together. They cake up with mud more. The shoe is rated at 3 little stars, but it seems firmer to me than this one. I don't think there's as much give in the entire shoe. And it doesn't have the same racy, fast, lightweight feel. It's more of a clunky feeling shoe. Let's see how wide it is. Geez, it's almost the same width, but it's actually narrower in the forefoot as far as the bottom of the shoe, but the top definitely does have more material and gives you more room for your forefoot. Now, I primarily have been running for the last year or so in some Nike Frees, and I like the Nike Frees. I think they're pretty soft, the material that they're made out of. They have a much wider forefoot. I don't know if we'll be able to see that, but I think you can tend to tell much wider. You know, that's got to be a whole thumb width wider. These I have tried on. This is a size 10, fits my foot well for length, but the width is way too narrow. I've tried on 10.5, and the length is getting too long. They're still too tight. Size 11, the length is way too long, but the width is good in the forefoot. So I wish Inov8 would create a shoe very similar to this with zero heel drop and a wider forefoot, same width heel, same identical heel, same identical bottom. This bottom is amazing. And another thing is this shoe is very flexible. So even if you step on a very slippery root at an angle, the shoe bends around it and keeps contact with the ground in other places, and you don't end up sliding off. It's also kind of recessed in here a little bit, so if you step on things with your midfoot, it doesn't roll your ankle over as easily, nor at the heel. So awesome shoe, very close to ideal, just not quite. Oh, in my quest for finding the best trail running shoe, I've run into some strange things. This is the Nike Long Ball. It's not a running shoe, but in the minimalist world, this is kind of what you're after. It has no cushioning, no whatever. It's got a lot of small lugs, and this is actually a very slippery shoe in the mud. It's no good really, but I kind of like the concept of having wide forefoot. I was thinking back to my days when I was in college, and one of my favorite shoes of all time was the Nike Waffle Racer, I believe it was called. And I remember these being bigger. These knobs are not all that big. They're way closer together than the X-Talon. So they're certainly, but since they are shorter, they might not kick up with mud as bad. I got a whole mess of lugs right here, which I do remember. But you see the shape of this? Narrow, wide. Narrow at the heel, wide at the forefoot. And pretty low. Although this, after walking around in minimalist trail running shoes for quite a while, I've gotten used to having zero heel lift altogether. So these actually have more heel lift than I would like, even though it's pretty small. I notice it. I wish somebody would make a shoe that was dead flat, narrow heel, wide forefoot, big lugs, well separated, soft cushy rubber, soft insole, soft midsole. I really want a shoe like that. One thing that's kind of weird about these is they're like perfectly flat. It's like no shape to them at all. And these, you know, have a rounded up forefoot, a little rounded up heel, and I think that's a good thing. So to conclude, I am hoping some running shoe company watches this video and makes a shoe, and I hope it's Inov8 or Ultra, but I hope they make a shoe almost like this, but with a wide forefoot, same bottom, same lugs, same soft compound, a little softer midsole with no heel lift at all. And I would be in heaven, because I know that's the exact kind of shoe I need to run in the woods around here. And by the way, I'm running in the woods in New England, and our trails are not that rocky. They are slippery, they're frequently wet. So that's why I love these. You know, if they're muddy, these work great. If it's just slippery or mossy logs and roots and rocks, they work great. And better than anything I've ever had. So Inov8, please make this shoe wider, flatter, softer. And you could market that shoe as the barefoot shoe for the runner who just can't make the transition to barefoot. I think it'll be the perfect shoe for those people, and I bet there's a lot of them.